All right, let's take some time and review for accuracy, precision, and understanding the problems you were assigned to do yesterday or last time that we were together. The first set of problems is directions were to simplify each expression without using a calculator. And for the first problem here, I know that if I subtract these two, I get, there's a difference of 12. And there's more negative than positive, so the answer would be negative 12. Another way to think about this is if I can imagine or draw a number line up here, if 6 is here, and I'm adding negative 18, I'm going to go that way, and I have to go past 0, so I go 6, and then I go 12 more, and I end up at negative 12. This problem over here, I know that I got 12 and a half, and I'm adding it to negative 25. In my head, I can imagine that this would be like $12.50, and I multiply that times 2 and get $25. So if I add these two together, I end up with 12 and a half, but it's negative because there's more negative value here in this problem. I could also do 25 subtract 12 and a half, and I'd still get the same answer. I just have to look and see which, again, has the most value, the positive or the negative number. Moving down to negative 9 plus negative 9. I believe that's a kind of an easy one because we're just adding the same sign symbol. We're adding two negatives, and so we just keep going more negative. This problem here is negative 12 and 2/10 plus 6 and 1/10 plus 15 and 8/10. Now, as I'm comparing these two numbers, I see that this is half of 12 and 2/10, or I could say that if I doubled 6 and 1/10, I would get 12 and 2/10. So if I combine these, I end up with 6 and 1/10. Because this is negative, it ends up being a negative answer. And then when I add it to this number, it's basically like subtracting. So I'm going to write this over here so I can do the math a little bit more neatly. And I have 7, make sure I put my decimal point. 15 subtract 6 is 9. So the answer here is 9 and 7/10. And that is, we have more positive value in this problem, and the answer ends up being positive. Moving on to the next part of this assignment, we're going to go ahead and kind of focus in on what is for problem 3-60. So to find each of the following products or quotients without using a calculator. So that means that we are going to multiply or divide. This is 6 times negative 3, and our answer would be 18. Since my signs are different, I get a negative 18. Negative 6 times 3, I get an 18 again, and it's negative because the signs on the factors are different. This here is negative 8 times negative 3. 8 times 3 is 24. Because these both have the same signs, the answer is positive. Remembering that whenever I don't have an operation sign between a number and a parentheses, it's multiplication. I know sometimes it's easy to forget that, but we need to keep working on that memory since we're going to be moving more and more into variables in the future. Negative 8 times 0 is still just 0. 0 is pretty powerful, and anytime it's multiplied by any number, positive or negative, it is 0 as the answer. This problem here, it's almost looks like negative 20 plus 5, but it's negative 20 divided by 5. I could rewrite it like this, and that would be 4. And because one of these two numbers is negative, because they're different signs, the answer is negative. This one here is 36 divided by 9. They are both negative numbers, so my answer is going to be 4, because 36 divided by 9 is 4. Same signs, positive answer. And then let's move down to our last set of problems right here. We are supposed to solve or simplify these expressions. I made them into equations by putting the equal sign in right before I started videoing. This problem here, we need to make sure they have the same denominator. So I'm going to use my giant 1. I'm going to put 2's in it. So this becomes 10 over 12. And over here, I'm going to put 3's in it. So that becomes 3 over 12. And that becomes 13 twelfths, or 1 and 1 twelfth. The problem for letter B is a subtraction problem. We need to come up with a common denominator, and I'm going to go ahead and use the number 5 and the number 12 for my giant ones. And this would become 35 over 60, subtract. This would become 24 over 60. And I know you can't see that very well, so let's move it over a little bit. And our answer is going to be 11 over 60. And then the multiplication problems are much easier. Multiply straight across, and I get 6. 8 times 3 is 24. And that becomes 1/4 if I simplify it down. This problem here, 4 times 7 is 28. 5 times 8 is 40. I can simplify that down to 7 over 8. And let's try that again. 7 over 10. Much better.